Hello, Facebook. It's me, Aquarius Kane, the CEO of Achieve Success Tutoring. As you know, and if you don't know, let me reintroduce myself. I am the lover of learning, the giver of knowledge, and the overachiever. And we are talking tonight about the fear or parenting in fear. So it's been a while since I've done the What's Up Wednesday. Life got pretty hectic. It got super busy. And I had to work on legit figuring out how to manage that. But I'm back and I'm ready, and I'm excited about sharing so many new topics with you guys. This year, we're going to get real. We're going to get down and dirty. I've been in business. This year will be my 10th year in business as a tutor. And I have been tutoring and being an educator since, it's been almost 14, 15 years. And so over this time, I have learned so much. I have seen so much. I've coached, taught, and I help parents out and families out a lot in this tutoring industry because we don't just simply tutor the kids. There's so much more that's involved in it. So we are going to dig deep this year, this month. We've got so many great topics this month for our What's Up Wednesday, and it's important, it's necessary. Some of it may be touchy, some of it may seem to hurt a little bit or sting a little bit, but we've got to pull it out so that we can recognize what we're doing, because the ultimate goal in anything that I'm doing and that I'm sharing with you guys is to make sure that your children and your family is successful. So I'm doing this in nothing but love. Nothing but love. So if you are here, why don't you shout out, tell me who you are and where you're from. Who you are and where you're from. So I do want to thank you all for joining me. And again, the topic tonight is parenting in fear. And if you know any parents who parent in fear, I will be the first to admit that I do parent in fear. But sometimes we don't realize that we're doing that. So I want you to tag some parents or friends or whoever you know. I want you to share this because this is a deep conversation and I want as many people involved as possible so we can begin to dig through this. And so what's that strategy? Where am I going with this? So we're going to talk about those fears. What are those fears? And how do those fears affect our families? How do they affect us? How do they affect our children and their academics? And then what do we do to begin to kind of change that narrative and to begin to parent in trust? Okay, because there's a difference in parenting in fear and parenting in trust. So who are you? Shout yourselves out. I would love to know who you are, where you're from, who's logging in. I want to say hey to you all, and make sure that you are inviting as many people as you can to join us to have this important discussion tonight about parenting in fear. So I'm going to begin. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to just kind of shout yourselves out and tell me who you are. Where are you from? And we're going to dig deep, and I'm going to go ahead and confess some of my fears, okay? Because like I said, we all have some fears that we operate in, and we don't really realize that they're fears, or maybe we do, but we don't think or realize that they're affecting other people. Okay, so we have to begin to realize those things. The first thing is always to admit you have a problem. And not that it's a huge problem. I promise for the majority of us, it's not a really big problem, but it's something that's big enough that it's beginning to affect your family. It's beginning to affect your children, and you need to recognize it, and let's fix it. Let's curve that. All right, so tell me who you are, but more importantly, what are your fears? What are some of your fears? Okay, just drop them down. All right, I'm going to start with myself. What are some fears that run rampant in society? Let's start there. What are some fears? Well, how does society make us fearful? And what are those things that they have us fearful of? Some things are the fear of being poor. The fear of being poor. Okay, there's so many fears out there. One of my fears, and I'm going to tell you, I want you to tell me what some of your fears are, and I'm going to share some of mine. So one of my biggest fears as it relates to my child and my parenting is about strangers. Strangers. So I am fearful that a stranger is just going to take my child, kidnap my child. And so I operate in that fear daily. Let me tell you, I operate in that fear daily. So when my child goes outside to play, there has to be someone watching him. And a part of that fear is because I watch the news. I'm in Metro Atlanta. So every day on the news, and then you see on Facebook and social media that kids are being kidnapped and they're missing, and all those things. And so it could be my child. And so I operate in that fear daily. So he can't be out of my eyesight. I feel uncomfortable. I have anxiety. And so I parent him based on no one's going to take you, okay, as long as I can help it. All right, Danica said, all right, Danica's in Lawrenceville, 6 sons. I fear for their protection every day. That's a real fear. That's a real fear, guys. And so my son, being an African-American male, there's a fear there as well. We know what's happening in society. We know what's happening in the world as it relates to police brutality, as it relates to how our Black males are being treated. We see the research, we see the numbers. And so as a parent, there's that fear of my child being treated the way that I see other African American children being treated as well. And so I want to naturally protect my child from that, just like Danica does. So if you're just joining in, we're talking about, I'm sharing my fears. And if you are comfortable with it, if you wouldn't mind sharing what some of the fears that you have with your kids, or just period. My fear is my child being kidnapped or taken by a stranger. There's lots of sex trafficking going on and that type of thing. Danica says her fear is the protection. She's got 6 sons. Ashante says she fears her future child being bullied. And that's scary because my child did deal with bullying. And it's not pleasant at all. And even in society, you see kids are taking their lives a lot more because of bullying. So it's scary. It's definitely scary. So what are some other fears? Because these are real, guys. These are real. What about some parents have a fear of their children failing? Right? Sexual abuse. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. Not succeeding in school, not getting into college, not being a citizen, an adult who can contribute in society. Those are all real fears that we have as parents. What else? What else? These are really good, guys. And so we're going to talk about some parents fear or parent in fear based on being judged by others. If you're just joining in, we're talking about parenting in fear, and I want you to list some of the fears that you have. And let's talk about some of the things that you do as it relates to that. How do you treat your children because of those particular fears? Or how do you project those fears onto your children? Are your children now afraid of those same exact things that you're afraid of? And are they afraid of them only because you're afraid of them? All right. Shantae says fear of your children being ungrateful when the parent is doing all that they can. That's a real fear. I know I'm doing every single thing I can for my child, but am I doing it right? And so how are you parenting as it relates to that? Hey guys, if you're just joining in, drop a note. Who are you? Where are you from? What are some of the fears that you have? We've got some good ones if you look back through the comments. So let's talk about how those particular fears affect your children and the different shades of that parenting in fear. So, and these are some common ones that I'm going to touch on. Are my children truly prepared for life after high school? I think that is every parent's fear. did you do enough? Did you give them enough to be ready to enter the real world, as we call it, so that they can be successful in all of those particular things? All right. So, hey, Kizzy. Hey, Ashante. Hey, who else? Who's there? List your fears. We're talking about all our fears. Go back through the comments. We've got some good ones. So I'm going to go talk about a few shades of that parenting in fear. And I want you to tell me which one kind of fits you, if it does at all. So we've got the helicopter parent. Ding, 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 ding. I know for a fact I'm a helicopter parent. Okay. So the helicopter parent is that overprotective parent or that over-involved parent. Thank you, Kizzy. Who is just, their kid can't breathe. That kid can't move, or those children can't breathe. They can't move. You've got it all figured out. You're making sure that the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, everything is done for them. You're making sure that no one bothers them. You're hovering anytime it smells like or feels like they're gonna do wrong or gonna make a bad decision. You're jumping in there. And you just can't let go because you're afraid. There's that fear that if you let go, something's going to happen to your child if you are not there, if you are not around. And I am guilty of that. I am 100% guilty of that. I told you guys, my child will not go outside, cannot go outside, is not allowed outside unless there is an adult that I trust who is out there watching him. Now, I have started to be a little, come off of that just a little bit when he goes down the street to his friend's house, and I just make sure that his friend's sister is at least out there. But there's still a certain level of anxiety that I have that, oh my gosh, what if someone comes outside and just pulls up and takes my child? Will he be able to protect himself? Will he be able to do this, do that, or whatever the case may be? So who else is a helicopter parent? And what are you helicoptering? And why are you helicoptering? Okay, my fear, my why is because of his safety. That's my why, of his safety. And so we're going to get into that. We're going to try to figure out how we can get around that as well. So the helicopter parent is one. And then we're going to talk about how it actually affects the children. All right, then there's what they call a snowplow parent. Now, the snowplow parent is like the bulldozer. They plow through the obstacles and solve the problems for their kids. So everyone heard about that big college scandal with some of those celebrities that were paying money for their kids to get into college. Okay, so their fear was that they would not get in, and so they paid. So that would be an example of a snowplow parent. So this is the parent that's going to just bulldoze their way through. And they are going to do every single thing. They're going to take care of it. They're going to throw their money around. They're going to throw their influence around. They're going to throw anything around to make sure that their kids get the top, get the best. And we, as a teacher, I've taught students of those particular types of parents who feel like they've got a certain level of power and a certain level of influence, and they just go in and they make everything happen for their children, whether their kids can do it or are capable or not. So are you that type of parent? Are you a snowplow parent? You solve all their problems. They come to you with a problem and you're just like, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to solve that problem for you. Don't you worry about it at all. If you watch Queen Sugar, I would say that Charlie is considered a snowplow parent. That's just me. Am I not coming in clearly, guys? Let me know if you can or cannot hear me clearly. All right, so Danica says, I work in an alternative school and I see so many other kids get caught up in school bureaucracy. I work overtime to make sure my kids are not seen as just a statistic. All right. Thea says and she ain't solving nothing. I get it. I get it. So what we have to do is we have to help. If we're not that type of parent, we got to help those types of parents to figure out and to kind of get over those fears. And again, I'm going to talk about how those different type of parents, how that affects the children. So then the third type of parent or parenting in fear is those competitive parents. You know, the ones that win, win, win. All I do is win, win, win. And they teach their children that you got to win. You got to win. Life is a big competition. Life is a game. If you're not winning, you're a loser. You know, that type of thing. And you got to win by any means necessary. And so they push their kids. Their kids are competitive. They're in all types of sports. They're in this, they're in that. They're doing this. They're, you know, and you're just like, I see some of those parents like, gosh, I'm tired. I'm tired of watching you and your children just compete. Is there anything in life where it's not a competition? So they see everything as a competition. And everything is win, win, win. You got to win. You got to win. Just imagine what that type of fear, and that is really a fear of failure. That is really a fear of failure. So I've given you 3 types of parenting in fear. Do you see yourself in any of those? The helicopter parent, the snowplow parent, or the competitive parent? Oh, that pressure. Yes, Shantae. So that pressure, it puts so much pressure on the kids when you're in that competitive state, right? And so there's that pressure to perform for them. So now let's talk about how it affects the children and how it affects their performance. So let's start with the competitive parents. All right. Are any of you competitive parents? And I by no means want to make anyone feel bad here. Okay. I've already identified the type of overprotective helicopter parent fear that I have. And I think the majority of us have some form of parenting in fear. So again, our job is to kind of do that. Thea says she used to be a helicopter parent, not anymore. Thea, share with us how you have overcome being a helicopter parent. And talk to us about why you are not anymore. Like what changed for you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so with the competitive parent, the one that puts that pressure on to win at any cost, what happens with the kids is they see life as a big competition. And then when they see life as a big competition, then they don't enjoy things anymore. And then they also become a little more robotic, okay? A little less human, so to speak, for lack of a better analogy or description of that. So the joy, the fun, they don't have fun anymore. Everything is calculated and everything has to have a purpose, and there has to be some form of end goal or some type of reward. Okay, so these are the competitive. This is what's happening. If there's no reward at the end, then these are the kids that are not going to do it. What's in it for me? Am I going to win? Oh, and if there's a possibility of losing or not gaining something, then they're not interested and they're not going to do it. So they miss out on so much. Okay, Danica says that makes me guilty as being a helicopter parent. I am learning to step back so my growing offspring can step up and out successfully. Very good. Their fails are just opportunities for them to grow and adjust. Danica, that is it right there. So I'm gonna put that note right there. I'm gonna make myself a note because I'm gonna come back to that last statement that she said. Okay. But back to the competitive parents. So if there's no reward at the end, they're not going to do it. So just think about what your kids miss out on, being that competitive student, right? Who is only going to do something if there's something in it for them. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? Thea says, as my children got older, I realized I can't solve all their problems and they won't be able to defend or learn from themselves if I keep everything dangerous or harmful away from them. Man, y'all are on it. Y'all are on it. That's it. That's it right there. Okay, so what are we doing to our children? We've got to realize what's happening to them, and we've got to realize what we've got to do to step back as well and stop using our own fears and projecting our own fears, right? So what happens to the competitive student who fails? What happens to that competitive student if they do not succeed? What happens to their ego? How does it tear them up inside? Just think about that. Think about how it eats at them if they make one mistake and their life has always been about winning. What happens to them if they lose? It's the end of the world for them. They can't cope. They don't know how to cope. They don't know what it's like to fail. They don't know what it's like to lose. So when they finally do, because failure is not an option sometimes, we have to fail to win sometimes. And so if they don't get an opportunity to experience that failure, think about how it kills them on the inside because they have to win. They have to win. And that's what we're teaching them. We can't do that. We can't do that. All right, so that's the comparative parent. So recapping, the snowplow parent. Again, the snowplow parent, this is the one that pushes through all the obstacles, solves all the problems, through their money, their wealth, their weight, their influence, everything around to get their children exactly what they need. What does that do to the child? It makes them privileged. It inflates their ego. It gives them a sense of entitlement. These are the kids that aren't going to do anything. Why? Because I don't have to. My parents are going to do it for me, or they're going to fix it if I don't, if I fail. These are the ones, they're okay with failure, but they're not going to reach their full potential because you're blocking them as a parent. They don't even know their full potential because you're doing every single thing for them. Every single thing for them. So there's a sense of entitlement. I deserve an A in this class. And I've taught students like that. There are students now because their parents throw everything around. Oh, yes, trumps of the world. I love it. I love it. These are the trumps of the world. Thea says life is the best teacher. It applies to us as well as to our kids. Absolutely. And if we're not allowing our kids to experience life the way that they need to, then we are failing them as parents. And it's going to affect them academically. So everything is going to tie back in to their academics, to their life, to their choices, and all of that. So our snowplow parents who are throwing their weight around, your kids have an inflated ego, or they will have an inflated ego. They will have a sense of entitlement. They will have a sense of privilege that the world owes them something because you give them everything. If you give them everything, then they feel like the world owes them everything. They feel like they don't have to work towards anything, that I don't have to do anything. My mom's going to come in. They're going to curse the teacher out. And then next thing you know, the teacher's going to pass me. And what does the kid learn? What type of adult is that going to be? Danica says, I had a student like that. He told me he is going to end up working for his dad. He did not care about his grades. I felt too sorry for him. These are the ones their path is already set up for them, right? You're going to do this. You're going to do this. This is the path that you're going to take. So they grow. They have no creativity. Again, they don't know what their potential is. They probably don't even know what their skills are because they don't get the opportunity to do or to show any of that. Are you that type of parent? Are you that type of parent? Now let's get to me and some of the others of you, some of you, the helicopter parent, the overprotective, over-involved, just gotta have their hands in everything and just their kid can't go anywhere or do anything without them. I've got to have eyes on you and eye contact at all times, and that's just how it's going to be. So what happens with our helicopter kids, the kids of helicopter parents, is they end up, or they could end up with poor coping skills because you're always there. So what happens when you're not there? What do? These are the ones that are going to depend on you for every single thing. Well, what do you say? What do you think? Your opinion is always going to be the most important, and that's not good for every single thing. Felicia says she's both helicopter and snowplow parent, but she's learning to pull back on both parenting styles, though. Hi, Tam. All right. Thea says King's watching the YouTube videos thinking he can just ask for anything and get it. It's hard to get these technology kids to know you have to work to receive. Yes, that's that sense of entitlement that we're giving them. And that's going to be what we're going to talk about in another one, that giving our kids everything. So I believe that's in 2 weeks. So we're going to dig deep. Not going to touch on that right now, but for the helicopter parent, your kids are going to develop habits of helplessness. Think about that. Jakari just said I'm a helicopter parent. I am a helicopter parent. I admit that I'm a helicopter parent. My child thinks I'm a helicopter parent, y'all. All right, but we're going to fix that. Eyes on you at all times is not healthy for you or the kids. Oof. They are not confident in themselves and not trusting their gut and know exactly what they're supposed to do. And I see that in my child sometimes. And so I'm trying to kind of move myself away from being that parent as well. So yeah, they develop habits of helplessness. They second guess everything they do. Even if they're right, they're second guessing it. Even if they're good, they're second guessing it. They second guess everything because of us. So in our efforts to help our kids, in our efforts to give our kids everything, but in our fears that are projecting onto our kids, we are hurting and we are hindering them. We are hurting and we are hindering them. And at the end of the day, it does not prepare them for the real world. It doesn't. It keeps them in our bubble. It keeps them in our bubble. And that's not the real world. That's our little protective, this is what I need to do for my child. And we'll deal with the other stuff later. We'll deal with the real world later. But right now, I need to protect. Right now, I need to have a certain level of assurance for me and trust everything we're doing. Really, in the grand scheme of things, we're not doing it for them. We're doing it for ourselves. It's not really for them. It's for ourselves. So think about it. Think about why you do what you do. Felicia says, I've always believed children and adults should have to work for what they get. Absolutely. Absolutely, Felicia. But there are some parents that just want to give. And again, a lot of that is because of our own lived experiences as well. So most of our fears are developed from our own lived experiences and our perception of the world as a whole. Okay? And so we have to begin to think about and break down those lived experiences. We have to break down those perceptions of the world. Are they real? Are they realistic? But can we continue to operate in those fears? Because as we see now, they aren't helping our children. Not one bit. Not one bit. Not one bit. All right. Thea says, I found my kids asking me everything. I knew I was doing the most then, keeping them from knowing what they know. Oh, that's a good one. That's exactly what you're doing. You're keeping them from knowing what they know because now they're 100% completely dependent upon you for every single thing. And you recognize it. I think the problem is we don't know what to do. What do we do? How do we get out of this? So for those of you who have begun to come out or who are out, drop some tidbits. What are you doing? What are some things that you do to pull yourself out of being a helicopter parent, a snowplow parent, a competitive parent, or any other parenting type in fear? We as parents want to give because we didn't have as children. Plain and simple, Thea. Plain and simple. I didn't have this. There was a lack. And so I don't want you to grow up the way that I did. And again, we're going deeper in that one in 2 weeks. So make sure you guys come back because we're going to talk about how giving your child everything, every single thing, how it hurts them. That's in 2 weeks. Felicia says, yes, us having had to go without of our parents not being able to give us or provide us with things we needed or thought we needed. Yeah. So everything we didn't have as kids or growing up, we want to give that to our parents. Every type of protection that we didn't get. In the beginning, if you look back, some of those fears were about sexual abuse, were about protection, were about your kids not being kidnapped, that fear of them not being successful as adults. A lot of that stems from our growing up. It stems from our growing up. And so we've got to begin to move out of that. Thea says, I've started to turn the question around to my kids to stop being a helicopter parent. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my kid, because he, as you can see, he did state that I am a helicopter parent and I am an admitted helicopter parent. A lot of that we have to begin to trust. Okay, so to turn the fear around, the opposite of fear is trust, guys. The opposite of fear is trust. How can you begin to trust those things that you don't trust? What are some ways that will make you feel better? Because at the end of the day, while we're claiming that it's about our kids, it's really about us. And so we've got to really turn it around and make it about our kids, right? Can I go outside? Me, what do you think? Do you want to go outside? Well, you don't have to ask. Just let me know what your choices are. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, so let's talk about how you can become trusting. Ooh, I was waiting for Angela to join in. Yes. All right, so Angela Perry, this is a homeschooling guru, guys, says solutions from those ill parenting methods. Ask them what they think. Ask them what they think they need to do. Ask them their opinion. That's exactly what Thea just said. Ask them their opinion on situations, on punishments, on problem-solving issues, or needed solutions about things. So to get over our fears, guys, it sounds like we just need to include our kids more, right? Let them know that their opinions matter, right? Don't try to problem solve for them, as Angela says. Allow them to brainstorm things. Now, I do that for my kid. Now, Jakari, for those who don't know, my son is Jakari. He's 10 years old, and he's watching right now. Hey, Jakari. And he owns his own business, right? And so I have been a helicopter even in his entrepreneurial endeavors as well. But I have more recently actually kind of taken the reins back and allowed him to make decisions. So I sign him up for particular vendor events. So one in particular, he has a vendor event in 2 weeks. Well, he wants to go visit his cousin for 2 weeks. And so that would mean he would have to leave and come back early to do this event and make money. Or I can go ahead and cancel him being a participant in the event, and he, just has fun over the summer. So I just told him, I said, you know what? That's a decision that you are going to make. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? You can make money. You still get to spend time with your cousin for a week, but then you just have to come back early. Or do you want to spend all that time with your cousin, have fun for 2 weeks, and then we can find something else. So I'm leaving that decision up to him. So, my helicopter parenting, I'm trying my way out of it. So what are some ways that you can do that, guys? Let's talk about that. So you've got to become trusting. Okay? So kids, you have to show your kids how to become responsible for their mistakes. You know what? I'm going to jump back real quick. So first, foremost, and just completely overall, the biggest way to overcome the fear of parenting is for you to understand, one, that failure is okay. You know it for yourself, but you don't know it for yourself as it includes your children. Failure is okay. And then you have to teach your children that. So for the helicopter parent, you've got to be okay with your child failing. You got to be okay with that. For the snowplow parent, you've got to be okay with your child failing. For the competitive parent, you have to be okay with your child failing. You have to be okay with failing as a parent. Like Angela says, we have to relinquish control. We are the problem oftentimes. Yeah, we are. We really are. We're the problem. They can't move without us. My son literally can't move without me. And I'm just like, where you going? We went to Six Flags, and I'm just like, no, I got to see you at all times. One of the other parents, I didn't even, my son was invited to go to Six Flags with a kid, and the parent was like, oh, he can go with us. And I'm just like, I don't know you. I'll go. So I literally moved my schedule around because I didn't have the opportunity. I wasn't available to go. But I literally moved my schedule around. You hear me? And so that I can go and be there and have eyes on my child at Six Flags with a friend. Because I did not feel comfortable. See what I'm saying here? I did not feel comfortable. Thea says, my kids' thoughts and feelings always come first. And failure is okay. Yes, it is okay. I'm still working. Now, I do have trust issues as it relates to allowing my child to be with just anybody. And I'm unapologetic about that. And I don't think that's going to change much. I'm going to do my best, but I don't think it's going to change much. And that's that mama bear in me that's just like protecting my kid at all costs, period. Unapologetic. Everybody don't get the opportunity to have access to my child. So that part is probably non-negotiable. But everything else I'm willing to work on. So you have to let your kids fail. You have to let them know that failure is okay. You have to let them know that failure is okay. So second, in terms of becoming trusting and overcoming that fear, kids have to learn to become responsible for those mistakes. Okay, so you can't take on those mistakes for them. Because then they become adults who blame everything and everyone for the mistakes that they make. So you have to teach them to own up to those mistakes. And we can begin to teach them by owning up to ours. So I'm probably going to get with my kid later when I finish and just kind of apologize for being that overprotective parent. You know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for not giving you the freedom that you need to become who you need to become. So you can teach your children and you can become less fearful by owning up to your mistake of being that helicopter parent, that snowplow parent, that competitive parent, apologizing to your children and teach them how to be responsible for their own mistakes because this is a mistake. Danica says that's a big one. Holding my kids responsible for their own failures. You have to. It's theirs. Now, but make sure you distinguish between making a mistake and failing is not the same as being a failure. That's what we have to make sure that we, what's the word I'm looking for? That we convey to our kids constantly. You are not a failure. Yes, you did fail. And that's why I love STEM so much, guys, because the first thing, any STEM camp, workshop, or anything, the first thing I tell them is, you're going to fail. You are going to fail in this challenge. And you might fail one time, you might fail 2 times, you might fail 3 times. But I need you to understand that at some point in this, you're going to fail. So I need you to be okay with that. Right? And like Thea says, yes, failure means they tried. They tried. And so you got to give them that. Yes, you tried. I'm so proud of you. You tried. You may not have gotten the result that you needed, but remember, a failure is a stepping block to success anyway. Right? It's a stepping block to success. So you tell them, you know what? Yes, you did fail. You are not a failure, but now you are one step closer to succeeding. Because if you didn't try at all, you wouldn't be any closer, right? So these are the things. This is how we get out of that, right? Thank you, Angela. She says nothing wrong with that type of parenting. That's protecting your child. Yes, and I'm unapologetic about that. Thea says, yes, we are in the way of our kids growing and developing to their greatness. It's already in them. Just let them go. I agree. We got to let them go. We have to let go. And as they say, let go and let God, right? Let go and let God. All right. So another way to become trusting and less fearful or parenting in fear is help them to understand their competency over their lacks or their incompetencies. Ooh, I love it. Fail forward, keep moving onward. You guys are on it. I'm loving this conversation. Yes. So help your children to understand their competency. They are competent. When you helicopter, when you snowplow, and when you have that excessive competitiveness, you make them feel incompetent. Okay, Key Rodriguez says, at what point do you let go? All right, I'm going to write that down because I'm going to touch on that. That's a good question. That's a good question, Kiki. Very good question. So back to that competency. So you make your children feel incompetent when you do these things, right? So you have to be able to help them to understand their competency. All right? You have to help them to overcome their lacks, because there are going to be some things that they're not good at. But what are they good at? They are competent. There are things that they can do and they can be great at and they can do well at. And so this brings me to the next point of that becoming trusting, is to get to know your kids' abilities and their limitations, and help them to get to know their abilities and their limitations. Once you know their abilities, then you become less fearful. Trust me on this one. Oh, I know they got this. Because there's some times where you're really confident with your kid, right? Why? Because you know their abilities, you know their strengths, you know what they're good at. And so you're able to say, you know what? I know he's got this. I know she's got this, right? So get to know their abilities and limitations, and then you can begin to ease up off of that fear. You can begin to ease up off of that hovering, that overprotectiveness, that competitiveness, and that snow plowing, because you know them. So in other words, know your child. Know what they're capable of. And like so many have mentioned before, value their needs and their opinions. Their opinions matter. Stop pushing their opinions to the side. Stop not giving them the opportunity to express themselves and their feelings. Of course, now we know there's a thin line between that, because they're going to do it respectfully, right? Teach them to express their feelings and their opinions in a respectful way. Teach them that their voice matters, that their voice counts, right? So then when you value their needs and opinions, they're going to go out into the world. They're going to be a lot more successful in that, right? They're going to be a lot more successful in that. So for those who have that fear of sexual abuse, and we know where those fears come from, and those are very valid fears. But how do you parent without those fears interfering, right? You teach them, you empower them, right? You teach them about their bodies. You empower them with their voices, right? So we've got to curb these fears, and we've got to empower our children. So you don't hold them up in your house for the next 23 years trying to protect them from sexual abuse. You teach them about those things, that they are real, that they can happen, and what's the plan if they should ever find themselves in that. But we have to prevent it, right? Because a lot of times we talk about what we would do after the fact. But the way to, I think a better way to prevent it is to have those conversations and empower our children. Angela says, I have 8 children, ages 23 to 7 years old. Wow. I am still learning to let go. I am still learning how not to rescue them. I am learning to trust their journey and all I have trained them up in. It is a continual bouncing back and forth to keep the balance. And I wholeheartedly agree. And that's what we have to do, right? We have to not come to their rescue all the time, because we're hindering their abilities. We're stifling them and what their capabilities are if we're running to the rescue all the time. Trust their judgment sometimes. And even in trusting their judgment, they may still make mistakes, right? But again, we have to keep them to show them how to be responsible for those mistakes, but also how to curve it, how to come out of those mistakes. And I think that's one of the things we're not doing, is how do we come out of those mistakes? We have to do that by showing them examples. I make mistakes all the time, and I make sure that my child sees that. I make mistakes all the time, and I'm okay with that. And I tell him that. I'm honest with that. Mommy made a mistake. I'm sorry. And so we have to kind of include that in our parenting and our rearing of our children. Okay? Last but not least, be their guide. That's our purpose with them anyway, is to be their guide, not to do it for them. For those of you who are spiritual beings or, believe in God, God doesn't do everything for us. He doesn't tell us what to do all the time. He gives us choices. He knows that we're going to make mistakes, and he's patient with us with that. Right? So we've got to do those things for our children. We just have to guide them in the right directions. When we see them going off in another path, without grabbing them and yanking them back, we can steer them with our guidance, with our communication, with our trust, with our love, with our affection. We can do all of those things. Right? We can do all of those things. Yes, the free will. We have to give them the free will with boundaries, though. So you can't just let your kids just run all rampant, right? You can't, because they have to learn that the world, again, we're getting them ready for the real world in the classroom, because they can't do that in the classroom because there are limitations to it. So you can't let them run rampant in your home, then send them in the classroom, and then let them run rampant and just voice their opinions with no respect or any of those things. So you have to teach boundaries with all of this as well. There are limitations to it, and we have to teach that. We have to teach that. And so how that's going to play out in the classroom is exactly how it plays out at home. Is exactly how it's going to play out at home. How it plays in their academics is exactly how it plays out at home. So if you raise a very competitive child, then think about how that's going to play out at school. How many friends they're going to have? Because they're competing with them. You have to let them learn about friendly competition, right? If you're hovering over your kids all the time, they're not even going to trust themselves when they're in the classroom or when they're out of your sight. Train them up and then trust that they will apply what you have taught them. Period, point blank. Very good, Danica. That's it. That's it. Right? All right, so let's address Kiki's question. So at what point do you let go? At what point do you let go? It's hard, that anxiety, that fear. Sometimes it won't let you let go, right? So what are your thoughts? Before I say anything, I want to know what your thoughts are to the question. In terms of that parenting and fear, being that helicopter parent, being that snowplow parent, being that competitive parent, parenting in those ways of fear, when do you let go? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts? I have a few, but I just want to see what you guys are going to come up with. And what are some other fears that you guys have? And how do you think you can break those fears and begin to parent in a healthier way? And that's the key thing here. So parenting in fear is not healthy. It's not healthy for you because you're carrying around all this excess anxiety, right? All this excess fear. It's not healthy whatsoever. Kiki says it's hard, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. Each child is different in when you let go. That's a good one, Angela. Each child is different. So you may not be able to let go in terms of those fears at the same time. I think it also may depend on the maturity level of your children as well. And again, if you are able to, let's go back to that becoming trusting part. If you are able to understand their abilities, if you are able to understand their competencies, then I think that will help you to ease off little by little. So I think the more you understand your child, the more you can let up off of your fears. So at the end, is it really about the relationship you have with your child? I remember years ago, when I was a young adult, I used to say, oh my gosh, my mom doesn't understand me at all. She doesn't know me. I wish she would just take the time to get to know me, right? And if she got to know me, she would understand my decision making. She would understand this. She would understand that, and she wouldn't just kind of do some of those things that I felt, were just kind of like not allowing me to be who I am, or not trusting that. And I believe that what she was doing was parenting in fear. So I think the key, guys, really is learning your children, getting to know them. Okay, so we spend time with our children, but do you know them? Ooh, good question. Do you know them? I mean, like, know them. Do you know them? Is the question. So I think at the end of the day, to break that cycle, to let go, is to really get to know your child. Get to know them. All right. This was a good talk, guys. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about this. This is my first What's Up Wednesday back, and I love it. So next week, we are going to dig even deeper. We're talking about lazy boys. That's a good one. All right. Angela says, with my oldest 3 children, the letting go happened when one moved out on her own, and girls are going to tend to do that a lot quicker than boys. The other, when she went to college, 8 hours away at 16. Ooh, ouch. Oh, the anxiety, Angela. I feel it all up in my chest from that one. And one with special needs, I am forcing the let go. Okay, so it sounds like you had no choice but to let go, Angela. So for 2, you had no choice. Well, no, you said your oldest 3. Okay, so 1 moved out on her own, and that kind of forced you. So our children making decisions for themselves, or experiences for them, forces us to let go. Forces us to let go. All right, so I think that's a good one. So being forced to let go by whatever those circumstances are, but also, again, I think understanding your child, learning your child, and again, their competencies, their limitations, and all of that, and just knowing that, you know what, my kid's pretty this or pretty that. I think I can kind of trust that. I think I can let go. I think I can let go of some of these fears. Right? What do you think? So this was a great discussion, guys. I am so glad that you joined me. Make sure, if you are not a part of the Academic Success Lounge, we've got so many more topics we're going to be talking about in there. So I'm going to put the link to the Academic Success Lounge in here. Make sure you join. Some good stuff's about to be going on in there. Make sure you join. Thank you, DeAndrea. Angela says she was forced to, else I'd be a mess. Basket case, I'm still learning. It is going to be a continuous battle, or balance, should I say. Let's change that word from battle to balance. So it's going to be a continuous balance, guys, in terms of letting go and becoming more trusting of our children. But like we said in the beginning, if we are able to talk with them and communicate with them, and instead of doing everything for them, just begin to question them and help them to come into their own, help them to make their own decisions, just guiding them, being their guide, just like God is our guide, leaving little nuggets for them to help them along their way, but not doing everything for them and not keeping everything from them. All right. All right, anything else? So those are our nuggets. I enjoyed you guys so much. Again, make sure you join the Academic Success Lounge. We got some good topics in there. We're digging deeper with a lot of things. Next week, make sure you're back with me and make sure you invite others. We're talking about lazy boys. No offense. Okay? No offense to my child. He probably thinks I'm talking about him. And then the week after, we're going to be talking about, what is the topic? We're going to be talking about how you are hindering your children by doing everything for them. This was a great discussion. If you're just tuning in, definitely go back and watch this one. This is the coming out the gate for the first What's Up Wednesday this year. I'm telling you, this is a great start, and it's only going to get better from there. Make sure you share this video. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I had a blast. It was enlightening. I hope that it was helpful for you. Comment below if this was a helpful topic for you, and what are some things you're going to do to not be a parent who's parenting in fear. Just drop one nugget. What are you going to do? How are you not going to parent in fear? What have you learned tonight? I just want to see. Because I am going to, I gotta think about what I'm going to do. Oh, there's my baby, guys.
Hi.
So, good topic?
Yes.
Yes, mommy's not going to be. Okay, so what do I need to do to not be a helicopter parent?
I don't know. Stop being so overprotective.
So he says I need to stop being so overprotective. I'm working on it. Trust. Okay, so let's hold each other accountable to these things. So I'm going to try to stop being so overprotective and allow him to make his own decisions. And from what you guys taught me, I'm just going to ask questions and make sure that he understands and, just allow him to be him. So that's what I've learned. That's what I'm taking away. That's what I'm going to be working on. And I hope you guys are going to be working on some very, very good things. And let me know how it works, so come back in a month or two and hey, listen, we made some progress. I'm not overprotective anymore. I'm not the competitive parent. I'm not that, snowplow parent. I've allowed my kid to do this, that, and the other. Danica, you're going to talk to your children and get their input. Yes. Angela, you're going to begin to trust more. All right. I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you look back in the back over there, that's my dinner that's been sitting there the whole time. So I haven't eaten. It's been sitting back there. It's cold. I got to reheat it. So I'm going to go eat. Late night eating, I know, not good for the body, but guess what? It is what it is. And I hope you guys have a very blessed night. I'm sounding off. Aquarius Kane, the overachiever, the giver of knowledge, the lover of learning. Thank you guys for joining me for What's Up Wednesday. Make sure you do share this with your friends. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.